Hello there, and welcome to the DC Shorts International Festival. I am Dylan Cuesta. I am a video editor by trade, a YouTuber by dream, and right now, a panel moderator. And we'll see how that part goes. I'm here with two filmmakers who will introduce themselves shortly, and we're going to talk about the ever-layered concept of motivation while working as an artist, specifically a filmmaker. I think the last couple of generations have exacerbated a lot of the things that have always plagued the life of a filmmaker, for reasons not limited to social media and the monopolization of getting into the industry of film, but we'll get into that. We'll start with you, sir. Who you are and your CV, if you will.
Hi, I'm Francis Abbey, and I am also a filmmaker. I am a multi-skilled producer / editor in local news for my day job, and then a narrative and documentary filmmaker outside of that. Also aspiring YouTuber. I think that's everybody's in that category now.
Yeah, hey folks, my name's Johnny. I own Chaotica Studios, which is a Northern Virginia-based production company. My day job is I'm a defense contractor here in the DC area. Film was kind of my hobby for a while, and then in about 2019 I decided to, you know what, maybe I can open my own production studio and actually get into it a little more than a hobby. So the IRS no longer considers it a hobby, so it's not a hobby for me either. And I've been pretty blessed over the last few years, worked with a lot of great crew members here in the DC area and in Virginia, and yeah, ready to be motivated and talk.
Yeah, hobbyism is a word that gets a bit of a stigma, kind of sounds unprofessional, but I'm actually pretty jealous of people who are still in like the hobbyist phase, because there's an optimism built into it that kind of protects you from the factors that would keep you from doing what you enjoy doing. As a video editor, that's like my bag. You know, I work at a music venue, Merriweather Post Pavilion, in the video room, and I help run the ads. I'll cut together like highlight reels and stuff for different events, and yeah, I use the skills that I built up by, you know, teaching myself to make movies and doing like audio-visual stuff, and it was affirming for a long time, and it still is, but there's that part of me that misses that initial spark, which was just making movies with my friends. I was wondering if you guys had any like aha moment that you kind of like flash to when you remember, oh yeah, I kind of love doing this.
So, I think it was 2 years ago now, we had some entries here in the festival, and they were 48-hour film project films, which, if you're familiar, you know, you get 48 hours to make a film and stuff. When the logo came up for 48-hour film project, there were like gasps in the room, because they're like, oh God, what is this gonna be? And like, but the thing is, I still do that. I've done like much bigger productions and everything, and you know, it's been a few years since I did it, but I had a long layoff before I did it again. But it really does kind of re-spark that joy of filmmaking and a whole bunch of other like agita, but you know, that's another conversation. But it's just like going out there and making that project in a very compressed amount of time. You're just doing it with a bunch of people you like and like being around, and it does recapture that joy. Because you're right. I mean, it's like you need to maintain that, especially if you're doing that grind day job, which is like what I do. I get no creative fulfillment out of now, and that's sort of the nature of like of my industry, which is like dying a very quickly accelerating death. But I, as an editor, getting very familiar with Premiere, and I take all of that and apply it to the stuff I love to do outside. So I still find some utility in my job, even if like the work is not creatively rewarding.
Yeah, I can attest to the power of a 48-hour film. I have like a few friends that every couple of years will wrangle together and make something like that, and it brings back that very same energy. So recommend, if you ever feel blocked, just try making a 48-hour film.
I think for me, like what you're talking about, rekindling the energy of just going out with your friends and taking it back to basics. Like that happened to me on the set of one of our larger films that we shot a couple years ago. We were down in Petersburg, Virginia, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning and 25 degrees on location. Everybody was freezing to death. But it was the power of the shot. We got the one take that was, I won't say perfect, but it was fantastic, right? And because the take was so good, because we were watching on the monitor, Ramel, who was my first AD, he was right there beside me, and we were all watching on the monitor. And as soon as the haze lined up just right, the lights were perfect, the acting, everything was great. As soon as I called cut, we all just high-fived each other. And that, to me, just took me right back to, you know what, it doesn't matter how big the production is or how small, when everything lines up just right, as long as you're there with the camera, like capturing the magic, like everything else kind of doesn't matter, you know. So that was really, even though it was a pretty big production, it took me right back down to like grassroots when you're out in the backyard, just getting things right, you know, stripped down to basics.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that too. In trying to do something as individualized as YouTube, which is like the new frontier of filmmaking and the kind of art that we do, you kind of force yourself to be a jack of all trades, not just the production, but also the promotion and the marketing and like the self-selling. And I think that commodification might play a role in where some of my burnout comes from. I won't speak for you two, maybe you've got a different opinion. But I think in the current era, it's getting a little hard to stay collaborative, and the idea of like that one magical shot that tends to be like another wake-up call of, oh yeah, I should rope in people who have a shared vision or appreciation for what we do. Yeah, so what do you guys think of, what do you think of the doom scroll and everything attached to that? Because the doom scroll is like the summation of where the industry has gone across multiple mediums and the intersection with social media. I'm a doom scroller. Hi, I'm Dylan, and I'm a doom scroller.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's very real. And like the attention economy is the term that's thrown around because everybody's fighting for the same attention from people. So like as a filmmaker, your competition is like somebody scrolling on Instagram or like Twitter. I'm still calling it Twitter, I don't care.
R.I.P.
Yeah, but like, I mean, that's all competition for the same thing. So like a lot of the stuff that, you know, when I was first getting into film, I had dreams, and it's like, I want to be a big filmmaker. Like my idols were like Tarantino, Soderbergh, you know, like those guys in like the 90s. And it's like, it's very rare that anybody kind of breaks through in that way now because there's just not enough of an audience for that, right? I mean, things still find an audience and still do well, but it's like now any individual, as you were saying, can make content and get the same attention that the massive crew is going out there and doing incredible work on. So that can be depressing if you think about it too much. But on the other hand, if you take it and say like, yeah, you don't need as much to find an audience, then that, looking at it that way, it's empowering. Because that's something that like in my industry, local news and everything like that, you're finding out it's like one person with a YouTube channel can get the same amount of viewers as like an organization of 100 people. Or even more. And the thing is that YouTube can make that one person rich, but it's not going to sustain 100 people. So like, yeah, these are the things that we're all kind of facing. But I feel like you embrace it as much as you can, because it's moving away from the old way of doing things.
Yeah, and it's not going anywhere. You know,
right,
it's never going away. And for me, because a lot of my stuff ends up on YouTube. You know, and if you guys run YouTube channels, you know, it'll give you every bit of data and analytics on the back end that you want, more than you want, right? So for me, it became really sobering when I saw films that we made on YouTube, and we put them on YouTube, and I would look at the percentages of how many people were watching these films on what devices. You know, and it was something like 97% of the audience watching our film was watching it on a smartphone. And that now informed my decisions on, well, that makes me rethink aspect ratio, right? Because if 90 whatever percent of the audience is watching it on a tiny little 6-inch phone screen, I'm going to take up every last pixel on that screen. So it made me rethink like aspect ratio. Why am I going to eliminate 40% of a screen size if that's what the audience is watching? So I don't know. For me, I'm kind of a data, like analytics driven guy too. So I like to look at that. Doom scrolling, I mean, it is what it is, but like I said, it's not going anywhere. It's kind of like, I'll say it, AI, the bad word, not going anywhere. You know, we can fight about it, argue about it, debate about it, or we can embrace it. We're gonna have to do one of those things, but don't let me get on a soapbox tangent.
No, all good. Sell soap, whatever that means. I can. Had a thought it left. Oh, are you guys familiar with the concept of a clout house or a content house in the YouTuber space? Because it's kind of like this intersection of being hyper individualized and trying to sell yourself as a product combined with collaboration. So you'll get like these big or semi-big creators who will like all rent out of like the same mansion, and they all look like something out of THX.
Like, was it Jawbone, the documentary? Did you see the documentary Jawbone? Anybody? It was
I'm not familiar with that one.
It was kind of, actually it was sort of social media driven, but it's like a weird thing where like there's these young men who have nothing really more than just being attractive to young women. And then they market them, and this guy had a house full of them in like LA, but it's a good doc. I think it was like Hulu. But yeah, basically that idea where it's like pulling together these like creators and then monetizing them. I mean, there's a lot of really seedy and gross stuff happening, but
agreed.
Yeah, but and that is your competition. But one thing that you can take heart in is that like, and because I'm hearing it from other people, they said people are going to start wanting authentic stuff, right? I say that because it's like, what is authentic is up for debate, but podcasts are becoming big. So like YouTube before, it was a very like specific kind of content that did well. Now it's a lot broader, and like podcasts are enormous, and that's something you got to commit like 30 minutes to an hour listening to, and it rewards longer attention spans, and they're authentic because these are people. Whereas like a highly produced interview that's like 2 or 3 minutes long, it's just a bunch of prepared questions. Whereas you feel like in those situations, you're seeing the real person and everything like that. So that sort of like realism, I think people are going to seek out. So if you're providing it, then that's a good thing.
You actually reminded me of the point I was going to bring up. I am a 90s kid, and when I was coming of age, like culturally, pop culturally, I was really nostalgic for the 70s because it had like this tactile, gritty, handmade quality to it. And now that we're as far from the 90s as I was from the 70s, there seems to be like this vintage renaissance happening if you go looking for it. So I'm really into like indie lo-fi music, like neo-classic rock and whatnot that's got like a handmade texture to it. And even though I do get doom and gloom from like the corporatization and the doom scroll culture, I think, to your point, people are craving something, and I think the best thing to do would be to combine what we know to be, comparatively at least, authentic, and informing the work that we do, and providing that option to other people if they never even like found anything like that. So kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, do you guys remember your first camera? That's something that kind of like wakes me back up as well when I'm feeling down.
Yeah, so my very first camera was 8mm video, and like you had to buy like tapes that recorded on tapes. That was my first one. Didn't do a whole lot with that. It's like it really started when I got the Canon GL1, which was a mini DV camera, and ran on mini DV tapes, and like then you could digitize footage and bring it in and then edit with a nonlinear system. So yeah, that was great, and like I shot a whole bunch of stuff on that, just like anything I could, and then just would edit. And coming from that to now, it's extraordinary what you can do, even with the phone. Yeah.
It's instantaneous now.
Yeah, Nikon D300 maybe, D3300, something like that. Entry level camera, and for me, like I embraced it. When I shot my first film, I reached that decision point that all filmmakers get to, where you start making excuses about your gear. And it's like, if I'm gonna go ahead and shoot this film, maybe I should invest in new equipment. Like everybody has that thought. And I'm good, thank you. And I made the call, and you know what? Just shoot it on what you got. By that time, the camera was already like 5 years old. I think it shot 1080. That's it. And I just did it. And bottom line is I actually still use that camera. I upgraded eventually to a Blackmagic, but I still, when I'm filling the old camera, I just want to go back and pick up the $300 D300. So.
Yeah, I've got a DCR HC52 Handycam. That was like the first like real camera I had. Before that, there was this little toy basically called the Digital Blue Movie Creator, and it would shoot in like potato quality. You drag and drop like explosions and slime effects on top of it, and it was so bad. But just the fact that even I, as like a 9-year-old, could cut my teeth and figure out how to like cut together a sequence on something that primitive was really exciting. But with the Handycam, I'm at a similar stage where I'm so used to shooting with like DSLRs or even phone footage that I kind of want it to look a little shittier. I need to figure out where my FireWire cable is, though. Remember FireWire? Anyone know about FireWire?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We got some older heads here. That's good.
Yes. I have a bunch of FireWire drives sitting in a pile. Who knows if they'll even spin up anymore, but
Yeah,
it's like, no, I need that footage at some point.
I can never throw stuff out.
Yeah.
Total pack rat. I mean, one project that is worth considering is just going through like hours of unused stuff and forming a collage or something out of it, something a little like Lynchian or like nonsensical, but it would be different, you know?
It might be, you know, a time capsule, if anything, if you captured stuff. It'd be cool to look at that period of time.
It'll eventually look as cool as Super 8 footage, you know, from the late 70s, early 80s, you know, just I'd love to see some old, I wish I had a shoebox full of 30-year-old, 40-year-old Super 8 footage to look back on, so don't throw anything out.
Absolutely not. Yeah, so kind of to recontextualize it to the now, what are you guys working on currently, if not like a major Gopherberg project, is something like, not a pet project, but just like a for you thing? Anything to report currently?
I'll tie this into the whole motivation kind of theme here because I guess it was hitting it at just the right time for my midlife crisis, but the pandemic hit. And I had a very productive pandemic. I got married, wrote a really good script, and then or coming out of that, you know, I did quite a bit, just being locked down and just being isolated. And one of the things that I did is I started using that opportunity to kind of connect with my Filipino heritage. I think even before that, I traveled back to the Philippines in 2019, so before the pandemic hit. And so going back was like, as an adult, this sort of eye-opening experience. And then I was like, I want to learn more about the culture. I want to connect with it more. And by that time, I had like spent years building up these skills. And I said, I want to make stuff about Filipinos and like celebrate the culture. And that's one of the great things now is like you can find those audiences, you can connect with those audiences before, like if all you had was like your movie on a DVD or something like that, no sure. You'd have to go to festivals and like kind of find people and find ways to distribute. Now it's so easy. Just upload, boom, it's there. And it's like people in the Philippines are watching it. You know, Filipinos in the diaspora are watching those films that I'm creating, and that's amazing. So that was one thing. And so it became, I talked about my goals when I was a younger man, and I was like, I want to be this famous filmmaker. But what I realized was, as time went on, and that didn't happen, I love making films. If I'm not getting paid, I'm still going to call myself a filmmaker. If I'm making movies for no money, I'm a filmmaker. And it's like that, I love the process. I love making movies. And so those skills that I had developed over that time, when I was like, 40, and then I said, I'm going to start giving back with these skills. So like the whole thing with my Filipino culture, that's one. And then like right now, I'm making a documentary about my high school music program, which is like an amazing program. It's almost like going on 60 years old, and nobody has ever done a film to like document that history. So I was like, that's me, right? So I went to him and I was like, I would love to do this. So that is purely a passion project. I'm not making any money off of it, but it's highly rewarding. I just feel like it's great. It's like, because there are some great stories here, and it's a story that deserves to be documented. And it's like, and that's, it was like, for me, it's like, I'm the person to do it because nobody else is stepping forward. So I'll be the one to do it.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, we came right off, I think, 4 straight years of fan film productions. Didn't write it up like that, didn't plan to do that, but we did a film called The Oath, which was a Batman fan film. It's doing really well on YouTube. It's been up for a few years. And that was about a 2-year production, you know, for a short from start to finish. And right after that, we jumped into Farragut Forward, which is one of the largest Star Trek fan films ever made. And we shot it right here in Frederick, Maryland. If you've seen shots online, everybody talks about the sets, you know, the set department built, you know, things that look straight up out of 1980s Star Trek films, right? So Farragut Forward, after The Oath, was another 2, maybe a little more than 2 years of just hustle, you know, just slogging your way through it. And this gets back to motivation, right? Because those were 2 kind of lengthy productions that there was no other option. We had to succeed and we had to finish it. We weren't going to quit. We just had to keep going. But at the end of that time, there was actually a point I was going to bring up today in the motivation talk. I knew I needed a break, you know, and I could admit that. And I'm just like, it wasn't that I was burnt out, but I knew that I wasn't operating at peak levels, right? So I kind of gave myself permission, you know what, take a break, because instead of jumping right into the next project, which I had, take a break, polish the script, spend 6 months polishing the script, which I've never done before, because I'm go, you know? But one of the points I wanted to bring up today is like, it's okay to like admit to yourself you need a break. Like the world's not gonna come to an end if you take a few months off from film projects. Like the audience will still be there, it's probably gonna be bigger. And just take a break. So you asked about what's next. I'm on month 11 of my break. It'll be a year in October, which has flown by. I didn't mean to take a full year. But the next script is ready to go. I just need some, it's a little bit of a horror film that we're gonna shoot probably in rural Virginia. I just need some dead trees and leaves on the ground. And I really don't wanna shoot it next month or in November. So we'll either probably look to shoot it in the spring of next year. And yeah, it's called right now, Working Title is the name of it, so it's not really called that, but stay tuned.
Blue Harvest.
Blue Harvest, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the pattern here just seems to be, we're so fixated on progression or accumulation with the work that we do, when really, yeah, you should account for your mental health, you should account for your immediate surroundings and your priorities, whether it's your family or your heritage. I'm also half Filipino, by the way.
I think we probably met at the last festival.
Probably. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we're like cousins or something.
Right.
But yeah, I know that for my YouTube channel, I, in the last few years, made a pivot from only doing like full-length video essays to like 1-minute versions of that. It is the easiest to actually complete, you know, if you struggle to complete a project. That can kind of add to your, you know, depression cycles with the creativity. But I found that after like a few straight months of uploading 1 or 2 shorts a week, yeah, I got like pretty burnt out with it. And I stopped earlier this year with the shorts. I think I'm up to like month 6 since I've actually done something in that format. And I think whether I was willing to admit it or not, I also just needed a break. So it's good to just like say that out loud. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, just to kind of about what you're talking about. I was gonna coming into this, I was like thinking, it's like, okay, like what kind of motivation problems are we talking about? Is it like this one project, I can't get myself motivated to do it, or it's like I hate what I do, right? Because it's 2 different things, right? And I think number 2 is a mental health self-care thing, much more than like, I can't, like this one project is just like, I don't want to deal with this. And like you said, mental health, self-care is like number 1. It's like, because I don't think you can you can't, like there's no good creative work gonna come out if you're not in a good place. So that's like, first and foremost. I think the irony of it is like during the pandemic when I had nowhere else to go, it's like I was taking the best care of myself I think I ever have, because it's like I got nowhere else to go. I'm going to work out. I'm going to eat really well. So, But and then the other part of what you're saying there, one of my suggestions to people would be, if you're stuck on that one project, for example, it's like, I can't get myself motivated to work on this, go do something else. Yeah. Like, you know, find another thing. It's like, whether it's like, if you're a filmmaker, go make another film, go make like a short or something like that. It's like, just kind of get that other thing out of your mind. And I think it keeps you sharp, and then that creative process can help reignite your passion for the other project too. So I would say, like, you know, and it doesn't even have to be a film. Like, if you are a filmmaker, like me, I never saw myself as a documentary guy. And then I got into news, and I was like, yeah, I can totally, I mean, like, storytelling is storytelling. Good storytelling is good storytelling. And it's like the two translate, and I didn't want the news job. My friend came to me and was like, you should, like, take this job. Because before that, I was, like, sort of freelancing as a teleprompter operator. And he's like, no, it's like you're underperforming, like, you can do a lot more in this job. And I took it, and it made me a much better filmmaker taking that job. So, and a lot of that was just my own, like, I'm going to rise to the level that they need, which meant I had to learn a lot that I didn't know already. And it made me a much better narrative filmmaker too, because I just got a much better sense of storytelling. And now I make documentaries as well.
Yeah, one of the best things you can do if you are feeling demotivated or detached from your usual bag is to try a different angle with whatever medium you work in, or try a different medium entirely. So I had like a really rudimentary like guitar class in high school, so I learned the 4 chords, which conveniently is like most of the chords for most of the songs. So you can get close enough to, you know, oh, it sounds like music and I can play it. So yeah, in the past I have like had hills and valleys with music as like a supplement with what I do. Once in a while I'll like make a piece of music and use it as like a background track, so that kind of like feeds into it. But you can only do that so many times. So recently I picked up zining, which is like underground 90s DIY magazine making. I thought it was like some recent thing. It's been around forever, and I could have been trying it out as a kid who like would make comic books and whatnot. Kind of going back to like, you know, what sparks you, what gives you that childlike wonder again. But yeah, me and some friends of mine who do make movies together every once in a while, we were taking a boys trip in Asheville, and we found a hole-in-the-wall bookstore with a bunch of like local handmade zines that they were handing out. So I picked that up and got really into it. It just became like a fixation for me. So I finally gave it a shot and made a few zines, some of which you can actually get at the merch table on the way into the festival. But I'm trying to link it to what I already know I'm knowledgeable and competent at, which is like filmmaking and doing pop culture criticism and whatnot. Yeah, I never would have done that if I hadn't just, you know, on a whim picked up a random thing that someone else made. But yeah, what about you? Anything beyond the film?
It gives you, well, I mean, I 100% agree with, you know, if you're burnt out on a certain project or you're not feeling it, you know, switch to something else for a minute. I don't know, I guess that's down to your individual personality, but my personality, I jump all over the place, right? I can't stay, it's healthy for me, I think, just to kind of bounce from one project to another project to another project. And I'll even structure my days like that, as crazy as that is. Like in the morning, I'm going to do this on this project. In the afternoon, I'm going to switch gears and do this. So I always function better like that. And I think, you know, subconsciously, my brain works out the problems I'm having on project A while I'm working on project B, right? So like you said, even if it's, you know, not shooting a whole, you know, feature or anything like that, but, you know, even a microfilm, something you can shoot in 6 hours on a Saturday with some friends just to get your mind off of the other thing that you're stuck on. That's kind of helped me before. And the other thing I wanted to say that you guys made me think of is, you know, motivation is contagious, right? So if you're sitting in a room by yourself, contagious doesn't work real well, right? But if you're around other people, I remember I used to be part of a writers club that met in Old Town Alexandria, and we would meet every 2 weeks. And it was just a small group, 3 or 4 of us. And really the only stipulation for showing up that night to the meeting was you had to have at least a page of something. It could be garbage, but you had to have something. And we met every 2 weeks. You know, life got in the way, work gets in the way. Next thing you know, it's like the night before. I'm like a college kid, like scrambling before the exam now. And I'm like, man, I need to have a page or 2 before I can show up tonight. And I didn't want to do it. I wasn't motivated, but I said, let me just sit down and write something, even if it's not Shakespeare. And I would write something, show up at the meeting. We would talk it through over the course of 3 or 4 hours, not just my stuff, but their stuff too. And the next thing you know, I would go home and I would be so wired. It probably had to do with the coffee we were drinking at the coffee shop, but I would be so wired because of the conversation and the ideas that we had all just exchanged in that meeting that I walked in with a page that I thought was just garbage that's never going to go anywhere. And now I can't sleep because I want to develop this into a full-fledged story, right? And that never would have happened if I was just sitting on my couch by myself. Honestly, I don't think it would have happened if I was watching YouTube videos on my couch by myself, which is typically the education most of us get now, right? Because it's free and it's there. But I just wanted to kind of urge that social interaction too. You know, if you, as much as you can be around other people, your motivation I think will benefit from it.
Yeah, especially as filmmakers, because it's a collaborative art. And like you said, that whole, like that idea of the microfilm, it's like the 48. I mean, it's like, it's a rush. You do it, you crank that film out. It's like, so it's like you made a film in 48 hours, it's great. And like, if you get, especially you got a good team. I got one of my team members here who like composed the scores for several of our, I mean, like, how many of the 48s did you compose? 2? Or just 3? 3? I mean, like the 48? 3? Okay. Because, yeah, that's really impressive. Like to score it, and then like brought in one of his boys to like play trumpet on one of them, and I was like, man. But you know, like, could we have done that better over a longer period of time? Yeah, of course. But it's like, just for like the rush and like the creative like energy that comes from it, it's like great. I mean, that's why I do it every once in a while, because it's just like it's great to do. But like so I would, yeah, definitely recommend, and if you have those good creative relationships, I mean, I think that's so important. It is hard when you like isolate and what you said, the doom. Let's take it back to the doom scrolling. I mean, like I would include YouTube watching, because I spend way too much time on YouTube watching stuff. It's like we're just dopamine addicts, right? And it's like we're just like this easy hit of this, and it's like it takes you away from real people. And I think that's something like you can look at the larger society and all of the ills that it's causing, just like the isolation problem. So yeah, definitely go out and meet people, get together, and just like do stuff. And it can be so simple. Don't go in with anything planned. Just say like, let's just shoot something. Let's just figure it out, and get the creative juices going.
I actually agreed to do these moderating things like a couple weeks ago, and I just like decided like that without even thinking about it, even though I don't really do this sort of thing, because I knew I was kind of hitting the ceiling on new facets of my creativity and my interactions with people. And I think my last big slump was largely rooted in like, for a few years in a row, I would go out to VidCon, because I'm friends with a couple of YouTubers who have like, a couple million subscribers. Like they do that for a living, and I network with them. Going out to VidCon is really exciting, because while, yeah, you get like a microcosm of all the Hollywood cliches of like ego and all that, but ultimately the goods far outweigh the bad. But yeah, had some family stuff come up a couple years ago that I wasn't able to make it out. So that one little stretch where I was exposing myself to different people and going outside of my comfort zone, that might have capped me a little bit, as far as growth and trajectory with whatever it is I was trying to do. But yeah, go outside your comfort zone in like whatever way you can do it, because that little bit of discomfort will reward whatever risks you take, just because you'll learn a bit more about yourself, and again, you'll be able to touch grass and like talk to real people and not just like comments under a video or something. How are we doing on time? Just checking in. All right, we still got quite a bit of time left. I guess we could take cues from the audience if anyone's got like a burning question pertaining to motivation or whatever we've talked about here.
Throw some softballs at us.
Yeah. It's.
Do you all feel like you're long-term planners or long-term thinkers, or are you just looking at whatever project is?
So are we long-term planners or short-term? Column A, column B for me, because I still grew up as, I want to be the next Tarantino or something. And while I statistically understand what that means and the chances of that happening now in my 30s, part of me is like, all right, well, I could snag something that's big and cool. But short term, I kind of just try to focus on the next project, because whenever I do get too big for my own good, it kind of like paralyzes me. So I'm trying to get better at just focusing on an immediate project. And then when I want to dream big, it'll be because I made like stepping stones to get to that space. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of projects that I'd be ready to do, and it's like waiting for the opportunities, right? And so it's hard to like, depending on what you're doing, because I think with the YouTube thing, you do have to be very strategic and kind of like that is a very regimented kind of thing to do. Whereas I think like the film process, like making movies, is much more like it's a project-based thing, where like it's like I got this idea, and then you go out, you make the project, and then it has a long tail where it's like, okay, now we're going through festivals, and now we're promoting it, and hopefully getting distribution and everything like that. So I think that has like a much longer kind of or a different lifespan, and the planning of it is like a lot different. So for myself, it's a combination. So it's like I have these projects that I'm like, I want to get this done, but like I'm maybe not actively trying to get it made or something like that, because it's like way too big of a budget that I wrote for, and it's never going to get the money that it needs. But then there's other things that it's like, oh yeah, so it's like certain things come along, I've got a project to make. And then the whole YouTube thing is really like, if you want to be successful at it, it's a grind.
Well, between the output levels and just trying to keep up with topics, because there's varying tiers of a ton of people will watch this, but they won't stick around because you only addressed it that one time. You don't make it like your whole identity, like drama or tabloids or whatever. Or if you aim for more niche, like, yeah, you're not going to get viewed as much, but you'll find people who are actively looking for that stuff and might appreciate what you're doing. And I'm sure that's true in like the legacy media as well, but it's just something you got to juggle more often than not.
Right.
Yeah, certainly with films, it's like, if you want to be a working filmmaker, go for that niche, right? Where it's like, there's an audience here, and I'm going to serve that audience. And it's like, are you going to be a wealthy filmmaker? Probably not. But you can continue making movies and then getting an audience to come out and see them, or get them on VOD or stream them, whatever.
And I'm a long-term planner for sure. I typically look out 2 to 3 years and usually have an idea. It doesn't always work, but it's a plan, right? So I usually have an idea, okay, this is what my 26 will look like. And then in 27, I want this. And then in 28, I want to get to this. So I'm usually pretty good at long-term planning like that. Also helps me with my motivation because, I think part of staying motivated through that process is breaking something big into smaller chunks, right? So if I can kind of break what all of next year looks like to me, break that down into quarters or whatnot, then get a shooting schedule off that and just kind of eat the elephant like one bite at a time, right? The long-term planning is usually how I envision all my projects for a few years out. What I can never plan for is the phone call you get in the middle, I was going to say the middle of the night, but nobody calls me in the middle of the night anymore, but the phone call you get that you don't expect, and they say, hey, do you want to come in and direct this project or shoot this project or whatnot, that you never saw coming. And then now I've got to, it's a nice problem to have, but you got to kind of figure that out. But yeah, to answer your question, I'm definitely a long-term planner for me.
I would never have guessed a defense contractor to be the planner of the three of us, but there you go.
It's the basics of project management.
A three-prong attack. I would benefit from a bit more structure in terms of like the short versus long Because, yeah, I have like an ideal version of what this could be. But again, the steps to get there it should be a little more structured and organized. Anyone else have anything? Yeah.
How do y'all deal with perfectionism? Because I think that's, speaking for myself, that's probably the biggest stumbling block when it comes to motivation.
Yeah, how do we deal with perfectionism? Yeah, no, I mean, the perfectionism can get in the way of me completing a project sometimes, but it can also be what forces me to put more polish into it. So for me, it's like a flip of a coin. I'd like to get more firm on what I think it's going to be. But yeah, as far as getting around it, it can be tough. I like the strategy of just working on something or doing something else until your brain refreshes enough that you can look at whatever part of it you're on with fresh eyes and tackle it that way. But yeah, everyone's also got different flavors of perfectionism from what I've seen. Just like all the different editors and writers I've been around are such, humans are idiosyncratic, so their process reflects that.
Yeah, I think I would say be prolific, not precious, right? So make a lot, because then you don't get hung up on any one thing. But there are those projects that mean more to you than others, and those, it's like, I think you can protect those, and you can hang on to those until it's right to, when you want to do them. But don't make it stop you doing other work. I was in a screenwriting group as well, and there were people in there. They have one script. This is actually kind of common. I think if you go into like some screenwriting groups and things like that, you'll see that person who's like working on one script, and it's like they're never ever going to send it out. They're not going to do anything. They're just going to keep, rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. And they're never going to do anything with it. It's like you're not a writer. It's like you're a person with one script. That's what you are. And it's yeah, I would say it's like, so just keep doing what you're doing. But the things that mean the most to you, it's like, those you take time with. But I think it hinders you as a creative to spend too much of your time and attention on one thing.
And it ain't ever going to be perfect, bud.
Right, correct.
I mean, go look at nature. Like, nothing in nature is perfect, which is what makes it awesome, right? I would, just speaking personally, I would rather ever put out 2 or 3 good or great films that I think are good or great than put out one perfect one, because the one perfect one is going to take me as long as the 3 really great ones, And like you were saying, maybe I've just not been blessed with divine intervention of the one film that I believe in that I have to make, and I'm going to dedicate all my resources in the next 10 years of my life. I've never felt that way. I've always kind of jumped from project to project, and I've never gone after like Ahab's white whale, right? But speaking as a perfectionist, like, I learned the hard way. Let it go, get it out, to get a great movie out there instead of a perfect movie that's going to sit on your hard drive for the next 10 years and no one's ever going to see it. So
I'll throw out a name real quick. Who knows William Goldman? Who knows? Yes. Okay. The Princess Bride, that's William Goldman. He's one of like the great screenwriters. I mean, he's got a lot of great movies to his credit. And but The Princess Bride was one that meant a lot to him, so he was very protective of that film and wanted it to be done right, and it was. But I mean, but in the meantime, he had all these other great films that he wrote. So he didn't allow that one thing that he was so proud of and that he loved to stop him from writing a ton of other great films.
Yeah, we'll take yours.
Yeah, I want to know how y'all pick your projects and how many irons you have in the fire at one time, and how you balance feasibility over an exciting challenge, like testing.
Yeah, so how do we pick our projects and how do we manage the balance of commitment? I'm just restating so we pick it up in the broadcast, by the way. So I'm very short-term YouTube. It's all a matter of what I'm fixated on, like a band or a movie or a director or specific artist or movement. Like, I'll harp on like a ballpark of stuff, and then if I find like an angle on how to recommend it to people or how to describe it for those who have never heard of it. I'll try to write about that to the best of my ability. Narratively, more of the same. It's like, I liked this filmmaker, I like these ideas. How can I apply whatever experience I have to those vectors and experiences and tell a story out of it? But yeah, that's the gist for me.
So I think it depends, like narratively speaking, it really, that's like an inspiration type thing. I'm thinking from as a writer director, because like the scripts that I'll write will come out of ideas that I like, that are based on some real things that I heard or that just come to me. And then documentary wise, it really depends. Like, I think stories that need to be told. You just hear something, it's like that. It's like something that like nobody's talked about, and like I want people to know about this. And so that's kind of how I choose those projects. But I think talking about the being prolific, I think you're in a better position if you have a whole bunch of stuff you're never going to get to, than if you're like looking for something like where you have like a dearth of ideas, and it's like but if like you have like, I know I'm never going to get to every story I want to tell, but I prefer it that way because it means I've got a lot to tell, and I'm always going to have the next thing.
Yeah, for me, I worked with an actor years ago, and he taught me a phrase, follow the energy. And I didn't know what he meant by that until I knew what he meant by that. So with me, I'm kind of, my work process, even though I plan ahead, I'm kind of like a comet or a meteor, you know, like I'm burning really bright on whatever idea it is that I have, but I know it's only for a short amount of time. And I know that if I don't take advantage or capitalize like on that moment and on that energy right then, over those next few hours, days, weeks, something like that, I'll never get back to it, right? And if it's a good enough idea, I will jump on it right then. I won't break, other obligations if we're in production for something else or nothing like that. But it will, like any creative, once that story hits your brain, it's got to come out, and it will, you'll stay up at night finding ways to get it done, right? So for me, it's follow the energy. Whatever the energy kind of, speaks to me and tells me to do at that point, that's what I'm chasing right then. And then I just figure out how to balance it with some of the other stuff.
Okay, we got a little less than, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, on that topic, do y'all have like trusted advisors or peers that you go to, and are they in the industry, or are they like completely separate outside the industry, and they help you with the projects?
That's a no from me. I know y'all got different answers.
I have, usually, I mean, it starts with me, depending on the project, like, it'll be me, and then I'm like, okay, who wants to come along, It's like that. And, but I do have a lot of friends who are independent filmmakers, and usually they're the first ones I'll ask. It's like, I got this idea, you want to do something? And then the group that I formed with my friend Drew here and others, that's more of a collective, where we're kind of like, we talk and like say, hey, this would be cool. So, and that's great. I mean, I love that energy too. That's like, it's so important to have trusted collaborators and people that you can bounce off of, because it improves the work. I don't care. I don't think anybody's so genius at what they do that they don't need like a sounding board and people to bounce off of.
I've got a fiance who is the first to hear any idea that I have. I will never hand her a script and say, here, read. And she's not in the industry at all, by the way. She's a acupuncturist, right? So completely out. But I will never hand her a script. What I will do is over morning coffee, I will tell her a story, right? Which is you get a very different reaction than if I just handed her the script and ask her to tell me what she thinks about it. I said, let me tell you a story. So over coffee in the mornings, I will give her my version of my script, and it might even be a treatment at that time. And I will just tell her the story from start to finish. And by the end of that, I will know whether it resonates with somebody outside of my brain, basically. I know we're short on time. You got a question there?
Thank you.
I'm going to bring up that work again and stuff, just because I feel like that's something that has probably had a profound effect and stuff in this space
Yeah, so just to reiterate, how do we encourage people who are afraid to start on this journey when there's all these elements building up as of late that would discourage that? I mean, I agree with your point earlier about AI being a fact of life now. We can challenge it, but it's still going to be there. I think if you want to challenge the shifting tide of do this or don't do this, just plant a seed. I mean, I like what you guys were talking about in sharing the opportunities with people and finding kinship with people and making the attempt and the doing like worth doing by itself, if that makes sense. You know, not really any like rock solid goals. Like it's play, you know, like play around with it. Start there, and if it compels you after the fact, then you know keep building up your toolkit and pursue it. That's really the only way you can do it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it is sort of like going back to like the way a lot of the filmmakers that we admire. It's like, oh, I was like a kid and I had this little film camera and I went out and made stuff with my friends. It's the tools are more abundant than ever.
Yes.
But I think they're lacking for like the wanting to go out and like get with your friends and go make a film. So I mean, like really just go do it. Get a phone and like make a movie. It's like don't make content, right? Don't do YouTuber stuff. It's like go make an actual film. It's like come up with a story and then go out there and make a movie. And because I feel like there are so many things out there now to be able to go, like I would say, don't go to film school for one thing. Because you can learn all of that stuff. It's like spend the money. If you have money and it's like it's a decision between film school or buy myself like a bunch of gear, go buy some gear and then go make a movie. Because you can figure out how to use all that stuff. There's like things that'll do that. Go on to sets and like have a real like cinematographer show you something about how to use a camera. And don't get yourself into debt. But yeah, I feel like it's just rediscovering what what filmmakers used to do. How people used to get there. It's like just because it's like finding that joy. Because I feel like if you do it, they're gonna like it. Because I think that everybody, you know, when you're on that set and it's going well, it's like there's no better feeling. And like a lot of the relationships I've made on sets, you're just amazed how quickly you become friends with people on a set. Yeah. It's like you feel like 2 weeks and it's like, God, I feel like I've known you for like 10 years because it's just like this bonding experience. So I feel like there's few experiences like that, and I think once they kind of get a taste of it, you'll see a lot more of that happening.
And Nike's motto phrase was just do it, you know, for a reason, right? And exactly what you just said. I mean, my opinion is it's never been easier, right, to get into film, to make movies. I'm going to date myself here big time. But when I was a kid growing up, the only indication that I knew of how Steven Spielberg made Jurassic Park, Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, name it, was a book that I would have to buy at the bookstore or a magazine, and it would just have still photos of shots lined up with Dean Cundy, you know, as DP shooting it. Like, that's what we had to start with and figure it out from there. Yeah, later we got the special features on DVDs and all that stuff, right? It's never been easier to learn now. We do have the University of YouTube, right? Which, you know, you can, in the same day, you can learn how to, you know, get your laundry whiter and change the oil in your car and make a movie. You can learn that in 20 minutes on YouTube, right? So it's never been easier. And then also, we got to talk about equipment. You know, the equipment that we're shooting films on today in a tiny, small package, you know, for not very much money, relatively speaking. That's something that people like Steven Spielberg or Ridley Scott or whoever probably would have killed to have 30-some years ago, right? So the price and accessibility of prosumer equipment has never been better. It's never been cheaper. It's going to continue to get cheaper. And young people literally have, and anybody else have, the University of YouTube. It's never been easier to learn and to get started, right? So I don't have a ton of sympathy if young people say, oh, I'm intimidated. Jump in, do it. Even if you're, you know, learn from mistakes. Your stuff's not going to be perfect out of the gate. It'll never be perfect, but you're going to learn from the mistakes as you move. So dive into the deep end and start swimming.
And that early stuff you make, nobody's going to see it. If it's bad, you don't have to show anybody. But I think like the fear of being bad and the fear of failure and everything like that prevents you from starting. So it's like, just let go of that, because it's going to be bad. You're going to make bad films to start, and then, but they're going to keep getting better the more that you do it.
Well, I think that's a good note to end on. We're out of time, but I appreciate you guys for letting us ask and receive sagely advice, because I needed it. I'm sure everyone else here needed it. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.